Her Excellency Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj, the Chief Minister of Assam, Minister Sonowal, of course our good old friend, Tun Datuk Sami Velu, who has been an almost permanent fixture in these events over the decades. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Vanakkam, Namaste, and a warm welcome to Singapore. It's a special honor for me to be here to join you today at the ASEAN India Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. It's been a decade since Singapore last hosted this event, and we are honored to be the host city again, especially this year when we are chairman of ASEAN for the ASEAN India Pravasi. I think it's all the more auspicious. I would like to warmly congratulate Minister Sushma Swaraj for the resounding success of this event. I think you know yesterday we ran out of seats. Today is going to be a very hectic schedule, and I hope all of you will have a fulfilling time down here for those of you who are visiting Singapore, and for the Singaporeans amongst here, for a chance to renew old ties and to build new opportunities. The theme, Ancient Root and New Journeys, is very apt. We remember the links that have bound us over not just centuries, but over millennia. But we should also remember that we also need to look forward to new opportunities to do more, and not just at a bilateral level, but at a regional and at a global level. The Indian diaspora has traveled across ancient routes to reach our region, and it is equally important for us to remember that there are new journeys ahead of us. As a person whose ancestors, great-grandparents, left India more than a century ago, made their way here, it's a very personal reminder that this is an ancient route that they took, but in a poignant way, I always remember that I would not be here, I would not be standing before you, I would not have had the privilege of visiting India if my ancestors had not also made that fateful decision to travel on this journey. The point I'm making is that whether you look at it at a personal level or you look at it at a national level, this route has connected India to our part of the world since ancient times. The records document that the Indian contact with our part of the world goes back as far back as the early 4th century BC. And if you look around, archaeologists have discovered artifacts such as glass beads and semi-precious stones from southern India have been found in the Malay Peninsula and in our part of the world. Clearly, trade and commerce is not something new, but has been around for thousands of years. And just as the early Indian traders established links with Southeast Asia, they also brought with them religion, culture, ideas of governance, and political system. And all this has become woven into the tapestry of our region. If you go back to the 13th century, Singapore was part of the Majapahit Empire. The Majapahit Empire was one of the Indianized kingdoms in Southeast Asia. Even the old names of Singapore, Temasek, or in fact, Singapura itself, is a Sanskrit name. We are another Pura, just as Jaipur, Nagpur, there are many Puras in India. And this is just another reminder of that ancient journey. The legacy of ancient Hindu-Buddhist influence is evident in the traditions and in the landscape of our region. Look no further than Angkor Wat in Siem Reap, the Hindu Prambanan Temple in Yogyakarta, the Buddhist temples in Borobudur, or the ancient Hindu Buddhist chandis in Kedah, Malaysia, which date back to the 2nd century BC. The Indian community has always been an important strand in the rich tapestry of our multiracial, multi-religious society in Singapore and indeed across Southeast Asia. In Singapore's early history, sepoys, merchants, laborers, administrators arrived on our shores during the early colonial period of the 19th and 20th century. Many of them stayed to help build a new nation and played pioneering roles in our emerging social, economic, and political situation. The early Indian migrants constructed landmarks and national icons. In Singapore itself, the Istana, the Commercial Square, today Raffles Place, the Sri Mariamman Temple, Singapore's oldest Hindu temple. These are just some examples. We may not remember the names or the identities of the individuals from India who built all this, but their legacy is all around us. We also remember outstanding individuals such as the late President, Mr. S.R. Nathan, who dedicated his entire life to public service. Our founding foreign minister was Mr. S. Rajaratnam, who penned our national pledge, which enshrined the visionary commitment that we will be, in Singapore, one united people, regardless of race, language, or religion. But regardless of whether one was prominent or not so prominent, all of us and our ancestors chose to make Singapore our home and help to shape the unique Singaporean identity into what it is today. A unique blend of Chinese, Indian, Malay, and many other eclectic influences that form our diverse ethnic heritage. But I'm sure the stories of the Indian diaspora's contributions to Singapore are not unique to only Singapore. There are around 6.1 million members of the Indian diaspora in Southeast Asia, all of whom, I'm confident to say, have contributed positively to the strong ASEAN-India relations that we enjoy today. Today's event is an opportunity to celebrate the important contributions of the Indian diaspora has made to this region and has given us opportunities to chart this new journey together, to keeping our economies integrated, forward-looking, and innovative. Singapore and India have come a long way from the time that we first became independent. In the case of Singapore, just 53 years ago. In the case of India, just over 70 years ago. In 2017, we marked the 25th anniversary of our relations, and this year Singapore assumed ASEAN chairmanship, and the theme for our chairmanship will be innovation and resilience. As we look forward to the next chapter, it's important for ASEAN and India to continue to reinforce this message of building connections with one another. We live in a time of uncertainty and volatility. Globalization, the presumptions under which the past 70 years were constructed. 70 years of liberal economics, of global integration, 70 years of a world order where, despite the fact that there were conflicts and wars, there was an emerging consensus that we needed a rules-based world order. But all these presumptions today are being questioned. And globalization has become an easy target for populist politicians who want to stoke anger and jealousy. And even the presumption in favor of free trade and economic integration has also become frayed. So this is a time when, in fact, we need to take stock of what is happening, why the world is so anxious, and what are those new opportunities and what changes we need to make. India and ASEAN can benefit greatly from greater economic integration and greater openness, especially with our economies and our people. We need to build more bridges, not walls, between us. ASEAN is poised for strong growth, driven by increasing consumption by an emerging middle class and the fact that the ASEAN population of 628 million is a young population and one that is destined to grow, and because of increasing urbanization will create many opportunities for infrastructure investments. Southeast Asia and India represent 1/4 of the world's population and a combined GDP of more than $4.5 trillion. The Indian consumer market is expected to become the 5th largest in the world by 2025. And incidentally, by 2025, India would already be the most populous country in the world, and India's population exceeds that of China. Similarly, the number of middle-class households in Southeast Asia will double between now and 2025. And by 2030, ASEAN will be the 4th largest single market in the world. Yet, today, India only accounts for 2.6% of ASEAN's total trade and only 3% of tourist arrivals to ASEAN region. I cite these figures not to discourage us, but in fact to make the point that there is huge potential for growth in trade, tourism, and many other fields. And we need to draw on each other's strengths. We need to take advantage of our historical and cultural and civilizational heritage. And we need to build on this and to grow our ties. And I would like to highlight some possible paths forward for this new journey. First, we need to press on with economic integration. This is not just a mantra or a form of words, but economic integration is crucial for the mutual prosperity of the citizens of India and of the citizens of ASEAN. Singapore is therefore working with all partners towards unlocking this potential through the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. The RCEP offers us a historic opportunity to establish the world's largest trade bloc. It'll pave the way for our businesses to harness the region's true potential. And for India, because you're going to be the largest country in the world in terms of population, the largest source of growth of middle class in the next 20 years, and because India remains young in the next 2 to 3 decades, this is a historic opportunity for India. And if you add India and ASEAN and the countries of Australia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and Korea, this group potentially covers almost half the world's population, 1/3 of global GDP, and 40% of global trade flows. The point is, these are historically unprecedented opportunities. Second, we need to enhance connectivity. We are fortunate that it's much easier to access our region in 2018 compared to the times that our ancestors had to get on board a boat and take a dangerous journey to reach our shores. One of the more immediate ways to enhance connectivity is to expand air links, to have more flights and more affordable air tickets that will facilitate the movement of businessmen, tourists, students. It will enhance people-to-people ties between ASEAN and India. Whilst we have been traditionally promoting physical connectivity, and we always think in terms of roads, railways, shipping, and aviation, but in fact, today there's also a new road. It's called digital connectivity. And India has been a leading exponent, a leading example of a country that's been able to leapfrog all hurdles and to take advantage of opportunities in the digital space. For instance, the implementation of the Aadhaar system in India was a phenomenal moment and a mammoth task for a country as large as India. And the fact that India could do it, I think, speaks volumes about its ambitions and its ability in the decades to come. So the digital space offers many possibilities to transcend borders, cultures, societies, and to level the playing field, to open opportunities for everyone, not just the people at the top, but for everyone across all bands of society. So we will seize this opportunity to digitally connect ASEAN and India in areas including fintech, e-payments, and others. And Singapore stands ready to partner India in areas of innovation and to serve as a catalyst for this in our region. The third area we're going to work on is to link cities into a smart city network between ASEAN and India. We will exchange best practices in terms of technology, urban governance, sustainable development. Share, learn, network our smart cities. And we believe this will drive economic growth, provide many opportunities for our young people in ASEAN and in India. My Prime Minister proposed last November that one of the initiatives that we will focus on during Singapore's 2018 ASEAN Chairmanship is that there are natural synergies between an ASEAN Smart Cities network and India's goal of 100 smart cities. In fact, frankly, considering India's size, 100 smart cities is only the beginning. There will be thousands of smart cities across India, ultimately. India is also poised to face massive urban challenges because we expect that by 2050, more than 60% of Indians will live in cities. In the case of ASEAN, we surpassed the 50% mark in 2012. This ongoing urbanization, this need for infrastructure, need for investments will provide huge opportunities for our businesses and our people in the decades to come. The point is, we have a lot to gain from cooperation. Singapore is honored to be invited by the government of Andhra Pradesh to partner in the development of the people's capital, Amaravati, to establish a highly livable, sustainable city with excellent infrastructure services and high standards of governance. So to conclude, let me make a few points from my heart. India is an ancient civilization, thousands of years old. India has been a font and inspiration, culturally, religious, social, political, for thousands of years. India has always impacted Southeast Asia. In fact, Southeast Asia has been an area of confluence for both India and China. That's if you look at it in terms of thousands of years. If you look, however, at history over centuries, India became colonized from the 17th century onwards. It's worth asking yourself, how did an ancient civilization end up being colonized? My hypothesis is that India and Southeast Asia became colonized because we missed the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution began in England and in Europe, and that gave them enormous power, and they were able to project that power across the seas. It took the Indian independence movement 90 years to achieve independence on the 15th of August, 1947. After that, we have lived in 70 years of relative peace because we had one superpower that underwrote the global world order as we know it. But we all know that times are changing again, and the global geostrategic balance of power is fundamentally altering. So, 2 points there: the technological revolution and a change in the global power. The choice that is confronting the world today, as we undergo a twin revolution of technology and a change of the geostrategic balance, is what vision will underpin the future world. Will it be a world, a zero-sum game, where might is right, big swallows small, and we compete and we form rival blocks? Or will the alternative vision of a multipolar world characterized by interdependence, cooperation, integration, mutual respect, rule of law, with access to peaceful resolution of disputes? If we recognize that we are now in a multipolar world, and India is one of the 10th poles of this multipolar world, and if India and the other poles, the other superpowers of the future, agree to construct an interdependent world, lower barriers, more bridges, more integration, then a new golden age awaits us. That is really the strategic choice that confronts all of us, the political leadership, economic leadership, cultural and social space. And my hope, my dream is that we will make the right choice, and our children and our grandchildren will look back and say, we have arrived in a new golden age, in this new journey along ancient roots. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Your Excellency.